Okay, everyone sees this? Great. Fresh and new. Okay. Fresh and new, we are going to go through a healthy foundation of month two mindset. Okay. First of all, I want to say congratulations and well done for completing month one. I've talked to each one of you on the call, at least in coaching sessions, and I know there's been breakthroughs. We'll talk about that a little bit more at the end if you want to share personally, but I know that there's been fruit in the past month of getting into alignment. And I also acknowledge this is hard. This is countercultural and it's uncomfortable to like sit there a little bit. And granted, there's been plenty to do in your membership site. There's been books to read. Like, I feel like we've done a pretty good job of, okay, what are we going to do in the midst of this season of stillness and alignment? So we're not just sitting there twiddling our thumbs, but it is really difficult. And so I just want to, number one, acknowledge that and say, well done. And also light your fire for what's coming, because now we get to take some of those revelations and some of those concepts and principles and carry that forward. But now we get to start to do some work. And now we get to start to really uncover clarity, which I know is important to each and every one of you. So this is called Fresh and New, because this is what I want us to feel right now as we journey into month two. This is what we've done. You've nourished your body so that it can release what's not serving you. And so again, depending on if you did the anti-inflammatory challenge or if you did the whole 30, now you're starting to move into new habits, right? Taking what worked for you through that time, taking what you've learned, what you've noticed about your body, what you've noticed about certain foods, how they fueled you, and hopefully you've released some of those toxins that are not serving you. Remember the first couple of weeks, they're like, oh, I'm kind of tired, or like I have headaches and I feel fatigued. Like that's all actually really good news, because it tells us that our body is releasing things that are not helping us. So now we get to carry that forward. And what does that look like moving forward? I know we've discussed that, but you've done a really great job. And then second of all, we've awakened your soul, right? We've gotten alignment with our spirit. We've invited the Lord into this process. We've turned off distractions so that we can discern true desires from distraction. And that principle, although I believe we never fully perfect it, it's a journey, it's progress. But this principle as a lifestyle will be so helpful for us to continue to make the decisions so that we can create a culture of progress. That's really what I want to help us foster and think about. Instead of perfection, instead of reaching the end goal, right? It's not so much about reaching the end goal or perfection, this idealistic state. It's more about, am I creating a culture of progress? Am I moving the needle forward in my health? Am I moving the needle forward in what I feel I'm called to do, and taking that forward? So congratulations on doing those two things. So now as we move into month two, we get to define together what your core values are. So although we're moving into another month, different content, we're starting to dig a little bit deeper now. We're kind of coming out of a slumber. We're coming out of rest. I want to remind you that, remember, at any time, you have the power, and it is power, it is authority that you have to realign your body or your soul or your spirit. If you feel like you're getting out of alignment, if you feel like, okay, my head's starting, a lot of us have talked about this increased mental space. What a gift, right? If you're starting to feel like, oh, my mental space is sort of collapsing in around me, I'm starting to pick up on others' emotions and pick up other people's junk, right? You have the authority to actually go on a digital detox, right? If you have a weekend away at the in-laws, or it's a holiday, or it's your birthday week, and you're like, woo, I'm just gonna enjoy and soak this up. But your body is feeling a little sluggish. You're feeling a little tired. You're not loving how your pants are buttoning that week, right? You have the authority to do a nutritional detox, right? A cleanse day, going back to anti-inflammatory lifestyle and putting those good things back in your food. Same thing with spirit, right? We've talked about meditation. We've talked about connecting with the Lord through that tactic. We all have, 5 minutes here or there to take leadership and authority in our own life to do that at any time. We don't have to just relegate to that. Well, we did that month one and I should be good. No, I think all of us know that it's not good enough to one time, but there is helpful. That's why we did month one, so it could really nail down and solidify those habits as reality and do them together. But now you have the strength, you've worked those muscles, so you can take charge and take leadership to continue that lifestyle. And you also have a group of people who speak the same language now to initiate that, right? I saw someone post in our Facebook group, I'm doing a cleanse day this week. Anyone want to join me? That is amazing. Keep doing that. So a life of alignment is a lifestyle, not a one-time event. Remember at our retreat, our bonus retreat, we talked about this growth cycle. The story of the woman at the well went through this process, and I believe we all go through this process, not once in our life, but many times over. So this growth cycle here, this is kind of where you are now. At least if you're like following this process, this is where I'm kind of assuming you are, because this is where you were before the program, right? And then this program popped up. You're like, hey, that's kind of different, right? And you were faced with new perspectives as you've leaned into this, as we've done month one. You've made the decision to go in. You made the investment. You made the time. You did the digital detox. And now we're here, right? Now there's a little progress. There's a little momentum happening. But now what's going to happen is as we press through to the rest of this time together, you're making progress. But what's going to happen this month is you're going to be confronted with old patterns, okay? I just want to give you the heads up before it even happens, because I guarantee, whether it's with social media or even eating, you're going to be tempted to like revert back to status quo. And you might have a little treat, and then that kind of triggers some sugar cravings. And you're like, oh, well, here, this is just who I am. I'm always going to struggle with these cravings, or, I'm always going to struggle with social media, or like being on my phone all the time, or whatever the thing is. Those old patterns are going to rear their head, and you're going to be tempted to think, dang, nothing's changed. Here I am again. I'm like really struggling here. But I want to actually encourage you that when those old patterns come up, it's actually a sign that you're making change, you're making progress. So I want you to continue to push through that to activate the change. We'll talk about that, how to do that, instead of believing the lie that nothing's happened, because significant impact, significant root issues have been dealt with each and every one of you. And so therefore you're making progress. So when you're confronted with the old patterns, be encouraged, don't be discouraged. So when old patterns pop up, you're tempted to believe nothing's changed. So remember that you've overcome, and remember where you're going. So when the old thought comes back, when the old comparison thing comes back, when the old eating habits come back, when the notification on your phone is too tempting, remember, those are just old patterns popping up. You have improved, you have overcome, you have identified root issues. And remember, in that moment of confrontation with old patterns, remember where you're going. Remember, no, I'm in month 2, I'm going to month 3, I'm going to month 4, I'm gonna complete and finish this thing strong. Not only for the next 5 months, but I'm going to step into all that God has for me. So I'm not gonna revert back to old patterns. I'm not gonna believe the lie that nothing's changed, because you surrendered to a life of aligned. You surrendered to a life aligned by entering this program. You're putting a stake in the ground and saying, I am not going to live life like culture is screaming at me to live life. I'm going to be successful, but not in the status quo way, not in the striving and hustle and hardship. I'm going to live in such a way that my life is aligned with the truth of who I am. I'm going to live my life aligned to my core desires that have been placed in me in my mother's womb. I'm going to surrender to a life aligned that has a perspective that is nourishing my body so I can live a long, strong, fulfilling life not being bogged down by physical ailments so that I can serve others at my highest capacity. Like, this is who you are. This is who you are now. And it's actually in your very DNA. Like, some people think they have to muster this up, surrender to a life aligned. Like, they think, oh, this is just for, I don't know, yogis or like super spiritual people, or, you know, like just special gifted people to live in such alignment, to experience prosperity in every area of their life. Like, that's just for the special ones. It's actually in everyone's DNA. It's actually your birthright to live in a life of alignment. It's actually your birthright to create wealth, to create prosperity. It is your birthright, but it is not your birthright automatically. The ability is your birthright. Whether or not we step into that and activate that is totally up to us. It's a little bit sobering. It's a little bit different, but I want to encourage you that it's actually in your DNA. And this is how. This is found in 2 Corinthians 5. It says, now, if anyone is enfolded into Christ, or if anyone has surrendered their life to Christ, in this context, she has become an entirely new creation. Okay? So the context obviously is in our relationship with Christ, but I also want to put our little spin on it and say that the past month of getting into alignment, dealing with some of these issues, nourishing our body, nourishing our soul and our spirit, that you have become an entirely new creation. All that is related to the old order has vanished. In other words, the old thought patterns, the old habits that want to and will, I'll tell you right now, they absolutely will rear their head. It's actually not real. It's like a shadow, because the old order has vanished. You are now a new creation. For behold, everything is fresh and new. Do you see what I did there? This whole training is helping us believe and recognize that I'm fresh and new. I'm a new creation. God has made all things new and reconciled us to himself and given us the ministry of reconciling others to God. So this is what's happened. You surrendered to a life of alignment. You have become a new creation. The old order has vanished. This is your reality. This is in your DNA now, okay? So that means everything for you is fresh and new. Your perspectives, your abilities, your mindsets, right? Your body is fresh and new. And so now, what's the next step of that? Like, what's the result? Okay, yes, I'm fresh and new. That's so great. Like, I can go live a happy life. Yes, you can live a happy life. But this is what living a happy life means. Not to everyone in the world, but to you who are the leader, to you who have surrendered your life, to you who are committed to stepping into your full potential. This is your destiny, and this is a result of you being fresh and new, is that because God has made all things new, he reconciled us to himself, and he has given us the ministry of reconciling others to God. And so the pattern is, the old has gone, you're fresh and new, and now you get to help others feel fresh and new and be fresh and new by reconciling others to God, by reconciling others to their original design in their body, in their mind, in their finances, in their family, in their relationships, in their identity, right? So what does reconcile mean? That's kind of like a, I don't know, old sounding word. Reconcile simply means to restore friendly relations between. Okay. So this is where we're going to start in the program and in your process. This is where we're going to start to figure out how each of you individually and uniquely are created in your DNA as a birthright to uniquely help others reconcile to God. And like I said, it's not just reconciling others to God, it's helping them reconcile to the areas of their life that's out of order, and each that looks different for each one of us, because each one of us have different spheres of influences. Each one of us are in different industries. Each one of us have different areas of expertise, but each one of us are called to be ministers, if you will, of reconciliation, to help other people restore friendly relationships between. So what we're going to be doing in this month and in the months to come is this. What do you restore relationships to? Meaning, like, what's your sphere of influence? Does that question make sense to you? What's your sphere of influence? Maybe you're called to be a teacher and you help kids restore relationship to their unique creativity, to their intellect. So this could be, with kids or adults, whoever you teach. Let's just use that as an example. You would be called to help these kids or help these adults or young adults reconcile their intellect to their full capacity, right? Because they're learning, they're in this process of growth, and sometimes they feel like, oh shoot, I failed the test, or man, I'm not smart, or oh, this is real difficult for me. And you come alongside them and say, no, this might be challenging, but you have the ability inside of you to learn this. You have the ability inside of you to excel in this different area. You see how that works? So for each one of you, we are going to figure out, what are you called to reconcile? In other words, what problem do you solve? What problem are other people desperate to get from you to live a full life, to live a life that's fresh and new? Isn't that amazing? That's such an honor. Like, we actually get to help in others' processes to live fresh and new by reconciling them to their full potential, by reconciling them to their original design in God. Second question, and what we're going to dig deeper and get super clear on for each one of you throughout this program is, who do you restore relationships for? So in this teacher example, let's say, like, man, I'm just called to be a teacher. Well, who do you teach? A teacher doesn't, maybe they have the training to teach a lot of different grades, but usually you specialize in one grade, right? So maybe it's preschoolers. You're like, man, I just am called to equip preschoolers, right? Or maybe your audience is like college students. You have a heart for college students. You connect with college students. Or maybe it's middle schoolers or high schoolers. You get the point. And this could even be outside of educational scholastic context, right? This could be like, maybe you're a music teacher or you do voice lessons, whatever it is. But you have to identify, after, what problem do you solve? What industry are you part of? Then you have to go to, well, who am I solving the problem for, right? Who do you restore the relationships for? And get super specific. Next is, how do you let people know you can help them? So if you know inside of you that, man, I am fresh and new and I'm called to help other people be reconciled in the different area of their life, I'm called to solve this problem. Well, how are people going to know you solved that problem, right? So in like a business context, this is like sales and marketing. Like, how are people going to find out about you, right? That's going to be a different tactic if you're a teacher versus if you're starting a nonprofit versus if you're starting a business. But we will break that down for each one of you, which is so exciting. Like, how are you going to get your message out? How are you going to tell people about what you have to offer, about your solution? And then lastly, what impact do you make as a result? So based on what problem you solve, based on who you solve it for, based on how you get the word out, what impact do you make as a result? Do people draw closer to their relationship with the Lord? Do people learn math? Do people, how are you impacting people? And there's usually a value exchange. So this, in a business context too, could be impact and income. What impact and income do you make as a result of solving these problems for these people? Does that make sense? So again, this is actually in your DNA. This is what you're called to do. It's just a matter of how you step into it and choose to activate it. But it's really exciting, and you should feel super jazzed as we continue this program that this is who you are and this is what you're called to do, and this is what you're going to start stepping into. So I want to share a little story, and I want to introduce you to the periodical cicada. Okay, the periodical cicada is the longest lived bug in North America. And personally, I don't like bugs. So this is not something, an example I'd usually draw from, but it's so fascinating. I couldn't help myself. Okay. I'm just not a bug person. Anyways, longest lived bug in North America. So they're found only in the eastern half of the US. And this is what's crazy. They surface in cycles of 13 or 17 years, depending on the species. So cicada, you probably know what a cicada is, right? Usually you hear them in the summer. Depending on where you live, they're those really loud kind of cricket sounding things in the night. Those are cicadas, okay? And there's a specific species called the periodical cicadas. So not all cicadas do this or have this lifespan, but this specific species does. They're called periodical cicadas. So they live 13 to 17 years, people. 13 to 17 years. These little ugly critters are alive. It's amazing. And so this is what happens. They essentially are hatched. They go underground and they live near trees underground, hatching and growing as nymphs and live off sap that they siphon from tree roots, okay? And so while underground, mind you, for 13 or 17 years, so if your feet are on the ground or like you go out and you walk with bare feet, just think about all these millions of little crickets. If you live on the East Coast, of course, like living underground, that is wild. So while underground, these nymphs molt and they go through 5 different growth cycles. And when ground temperatures reach 64 degrees, the nymphs emerge in mass and change into winged adults. So catch this, for 13 or 17 years, they are living underground, eating off of roots, going through these 5 different growth cycles, and then they emerge as fully formed adults. And so what happens when they come up out of hiding, they mate like crazy. I mean, I guess they'd be really bored. They're like, finally, we can do something. Let's just mate. Awesome. So that's what they do. And that lasts for about 4 to 6 weeks. Females, just for a fun fact, lay about 24 to 28 eggs. Okay, so they're multiplying. And after they lay their eggs, they die 3 to 5 days after mating. Isn't that sort of depressing? But they fulfilled their purpose. They've multiplied. They've had a little bit of fun at least. And they've laid a bunch of eggs and then they die. And then what happens is all these eggs hatch 6 weeks after, go underground, and the cycle begins all over again. Is that wild? So what's the point? Why am I talking about mating cicadas? This is why. Because every species of cicadas produces a unique song. Another fun fact. So the males, when they emerge out of the ground, each male has a unique song. Isn't that beautiful? That the females, they call the females, right? And the bugs can be heard up to a distance of 1 mile. So they are not coming out of the ground like shy, timid, lost. They are coming out of the ground fueled, strong. They've grown a lot. They're mature. They come up with wings. They come up ready to go. No questions asked. Nothing can get in their way. Their purpose, in this case, is to reproduce. And in that task, they have a unique song. They do not care what the other cicada dude's song is. They're singing their song, and they're loud and proud, and so much so it can be heard within a mile radius. This is a tiny bug. I mean, you can't hear a human. If I dropped you off, drove a mile away, yelled your name, you'd not be able to hear me. These tiny little bugs somehow create such strength in their sound frequency and song that it can be heard a mile away. That is called confidence. That is called boldness. And later on in the program, we're going to be talking about empowered state and how to live in an empowered state. These periodical cicadas, they are living in an empowered state, if you ask me. So again, what's the point? Well, this is the point, because you have the past month aligned. Just like the cicada, although it was a month and not 13 to 17 years, you've sort of been hidden, right? You've kind of detached from social media, you've detached from the status quo. You've nourished yourself in your physical body, just like the cicadas are sipping off saproot and, it's like all natural as you can get. They're nourishing their body. You've done the same thing. The cicadas grow 5 cycles. So they start in little babies and then they grow 5 cycles into fully formed adults. You've done that too. You have grown in your spirit, in your body, in your mindset. And now this is what gets to happen to you, just like the cicada, is now you are starting to come up out of ground. And you are not looking to your right or to your left, but you are coming up out of the ground. And this month and the months to follow, you are going to find your voice and you are going to sing your song. You are going to sing your song to the people who you are called to sing it to attract them to you. And we're going to do that in a story workshop. We're going to do that as you define your core values, your mission statement. This is all part of finding your voice, singing your song. And then as we progress into the program, like the cicadas, you are going to multiply. You are going to create impact, and for some of you, actual income from your song, from finding your voice. And so we'll get to taking action in a second, but I want to really highlight that beautiful picture that God gave us in nature of these little, in my opinion, ugly critters that are not, we don't see them every day. What if we were women who lived in this lifestyle of saying, you know what, actually my most important, productive time is when I am hidden underground? Because thankfully for us, we don't hide underground, come up, sing our song, multiply, and then die. Like, we have the privilege of actually living a longer time on earth. And so that's why I said at the beginning, you have the authority to go back underground per se. You have the authority to go back and nourish yourself. You have the authority to be in a season of growth that is sort of hidden from the world. But the result of that is when you come up out of ground, you are not looking to the left or right. You are bold in what you have to offer. Because it's not just about you anymore. It's about, no, I need to sing my song loud and proud because there is someone else that needs and cannot step into the fullness of what God has for them unless I sing my song. Because each cicada and each one of you well women have a different song to sing. And if you do not sing it, you will not multiply, and you'll rob someone else of that same privilege of reproducing life, reproducing results, reproducing and adding value, making profit, right? So taking action. I want to talk a little bit about key takeaways from our month one. So we'll do that in a moment here. And if you're watching the replay of this, you can share your key takeaways from month one in the Facebook group. Also, if you're just watching this in the membership site, there's a worksheet that you have that is just where you can fill out, do some personal reflection of like, okay, what are my key takeaways from month one so that I can step into month two with confidence. And the question that I'll end this bonus training with is, are you ready to find your song? Are you ready to find your song? You've done the hard work, and now you get to come up out of the ground and start to share your song so that you can multiply and be fruitful and prosper.